Hey everyone, welcome to the video. In this one, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the initiation part of the monomyth. Here I want to post this up. We covered this in the last video, the steps and how it starts and how it translates. I'll post a link up to that video. But what I want to do in this video is jump down here now and cover the initiation. And let's do the same thing and put that into some sort of plain language terms that we can look with. This is a graph that I just pulled up because it had all of the entire 17 stages of Joseph Campbell's monomyth were listed on it. But it's not a Joseph Campbell thing. Somebody else made it up. So the pictures are off a little bit. Separation actually isn't exactly the right term, which I'm going to get to in a second, because I have an update on something that I said in the last video, where I said because he had these right here, this was his list. The first 5 for the departure area, the call to adventure, refusal of the call, supernatural aid, crossing the first threshold, belly of the whale. And I said that there was some things that I thought were missing. Number 1 is that few will ever do this, and that definitely is in the material. Will only settle for the truth. That is there too. That could probably be on one line. There few are going to do this, and they only want the truth. That there are cyclical problems that we need to leave behind. And I thought, well, it's odd that he left that out there. That's a very big step, actually. It's right there. You can see it in the material. It plays out. And you know what? I'm such a goofball. Departure is that. I don't have to put cyclical I mean, this is leaving the past behind, right? You're doing it right there. The departure, he's got it covered. I just didn't see it. Okay, so I wanted to clear that up. Then there's another thing. On the other video I was talking, and I mentioned that the material starts out that when we're born, we're at a clean slate. And that's basically what the material says. In real life, we are born with, we're not empty. We come with a set of things. We have personality traits, like a brain architecture. There's people that are right at birth. Whether they're going to be an introvert or an extrovert is wired into their brain. That is not going to be a social thing. We see 10 kids in a house, all of them different, even though they're raised in the same environment. Those are because of the differences in the way we are. Nobody is identical at birth. There's differences. The DNA shifts a little bit. There's things like that happen. There's sexual orientation. There's things that we're born with, and sex drives, desire to survive. All of those things, fear, all of those are going to be a part of what we are going to become once we're old enough to understand what's going on. But those are there at birth, actually. When we're born, we are an empty slate, but only insofar as our life experiences that we want to interact with. Other things, we're born a certain way. So I guess my point here is the material itself does not tell us we are born with a certain archetype. It tells us we are born without a conscious and a subconscious, and that those come about later, and that then from then on we begin having experiences that determine our life. And actually right there is where the material picks up, right at the point in time where you can begin interacting with your life. Before, whatever you're born with, you can't interact with. The template is only interactive componentry for self-healing. Okay, let's jump right into the template. Let me go into that section right here, and we are in the initiation area. And you know what? We determined that once we got across the threshold and got into the belly of the whale, that meant we were turned inward. We are now looking inward instead of looking outward, and that can be a difficult transition. In fact, when you finally decide whatever I have acting out of me is inside of me, I'm going to work on that. As you go on and you don't have it resolved yet, we'll still keep blaming out. We'll still get triggered and think that it's something outside of us. It'll take a while to make that transition before you realize, okay, this is me. I got to quit. We're so habitually trained to respond one way. At any rate, okay, so here we are in the mind. We've turned. That's difficult. Then we have the road of trials, the meeting with the goddess, temptation, atonement with the Father, apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. And let's see, actually, this is what Joseph Campbell has listed as right here out of his book. We can go right here. The road of trials, the meeting with the goddess, woman as the temptress, atonement with the Father, apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. So let's just go ahead and I'll type that out there. So in the same manner that in video 1, we converted all of these into something that were very interactive mental steps that were not so nebulous. I want to do the same thing here. What I picture is that when Joseph Campbell was finding this, he's seeing all the myth, he's reading things. We all read that stuff and you go, oh, that's fun. But we don't read as much as he did. He read so much of it that he began to recognize some patterns that were happening in there. As different as the stories were, you read a lot of them, you start realizing, yeah, there are patterns in there. And this is the pattern that he was spotting. And from the stories, he's taking average of what those are and kind of coming up with an analogous term saying this is the part of the template. Since this is based on that self-healing path, then there are mental interactive steps or things that we are supposed to do that are contained within here. And that's what I'm looking to convert to. That way the template becomes something that is usable for us. Okay, so let's look at it again. And you know what I like to do is if there are places that I can positively identify to start with, that's what I want to do. And the apotheosis and the ultimate boon, those two right there I want to identify. I believe that both of those belong together. I'm going to keep them separated, but apotheosis is achieving your God status, your whatever it is, whatever kind of power you're supposed to get that allows you to finish the goal. Then the ultimate boon, the Argonautic eye kept using that. They're going to get the golden fleece. The golden fleece represents something, though. It represents something that if you have it, then you get to rule the kingdom. It's just a placeholder for the idea that, there is no golden fleece. The golden fleece, what would Jesus do? We're looking for the kingdom of heaven within. How do we get there? You make the two into one, or enter in like a child 7 days old. We're looking to accomplish a state of mind. This is all mental. We're playing it out there. So apotheosis and the ultimate boon, I believe both of those really ultimately mean the same thing, and that is that we are looking for our forgiveness and the relief from it. You're holding something that's very hurtful, you let it go, and you're like, oh my God, why did I hold that for so long? That's it right there, apotheosis and the ultimate boon. I believe that is there, so let me put that in. So I feel like everything I'm doing is pretty dynamic, so I'm just going to put here, hurtful emotion is changed and I am free from its bondage. Okay, meeting with the goddess. I am not very confident with the meeting of the goddess. Woman is a temptress, I believe I've got. The meeting with the goddess, I believe, represents the idea that we're just, we're reconnecting with our previous self or our inner being, who we want to be. I don't see this as being something that I'm missing out on. I don't see where it's missing or where it belongs, but I'll leave it there for now. The meeting with the goddess, I'll leave it as meeting with the goddess. Woman is a temptress. That one is going to represent that whatever it is that we are holding in our psyche is what comes out. The woman is never the temptress. In life it can happen that way. But in this material, since it applies to all of us, woman is an analog that means the soul, the psyche, the mind, the subconscious mind, something like that. So this is where we have all of our issues. And what is tempting us, what we're running into is, I'm an alcoholic. I'm trying to leave it behind. I keep going after that. I keep, whatever, drugs, sex, something, somehow, actions. There's something that I need to leave behind that I'm struggling to leave behind. Woman is a temptress. That sounds like it could be there. The road of trials, boy, that just sounds like it's going to be a tough path. It is a road, sure. We've got to go through all of our past. Atonement with the Father, that's the fun one. This is where we needed to have, in the first section, there is the supernatural training that we decided was learning this material. Atonement with the Father is this, and this is how it shakes out in the material. There are multiple parts to our mind processes that we can look at very specifically, and right now we're using our conscious mind. I'm talking, you're listening, we're engaging. Our consciousness is happening. In the background, the subconscious is doing things. It might be, processing. It's keeping you breathing, things like that. There's some automatic things going on. Maybe sometimes I talk too much and you're thinking of something else, wondering why is he blabbering on incessantly. That conscious part is there. The things that we store away, our hurt, the pain, the shame, those are offspring. Those are there, or considered offspring. The Father here is something that in the hierarchical state, we've got ourselves and we got our conscious and our subconscious, but there's a higher something there. And what this is our higher self. This part of the mind is a little tricky to see for some people. I think some actually cannot get there. I used to think it would be simple, but I realize now that, there's some people that are like, oh yeah, I got it. And there's others that don't. So here's what it is. Where you have the capacity in your own mind. This is an imagination thing. If you close your eyes, you don't even have to. You can just in your mind imagine yourself outside of yourself. I call it God mode sometimes. Pretend like you're out in space. Put yourself way out there and look at planet Earth. So far away from it that you don't even see what's going on anymore. At some point in doing this, if you can get to this point easy enough, you actually lose attachment. The feelings that you have, the emotion to your life, you begin to experience, oh, there's a whole cosmic something out here. And that becomes less of an issue. You move in closer and closer that we can actually real close to ourselves. I can sit here talking, and while I'm talking to you, I can imagine in my mind that I'm up here watching myself doing this recording. It's not really happening. They're just processes in the mind. But this higher self has the capacity to look at your life without emotional attachment. So the things that hurt you, that you think of consciously, when you're re-experiencing them and your palms are sweating and you're crying and you're freaking out or you're angry or something like that, this higher self can look at that if it's conditioned well enough and be objective about it and realize that it's a flow of things going on, that you are a physical emergence from that got affected this way, and it's trying to help you understand that to pull out. This is all happening in your mind. You're not really going anywhere. They're mental processes that are accessible to us if our minds allow us to do it. Again, I think there's people that can just, imagine riding a bus or driving down the road or something, and you can see yourself from up above. And this isn't seeing magical things. Oh, you can go and see things that aren't there. That's not it. This is just imagining that you are detached, because we have that part of us. That is the original, whatever we come from. The more you do that, the farther you get back away. It's like instead of going to the physical world, you're going to the energy world. You're disconnecting from the physical the farther you move that way. When you move outwards, you're not moving away from it. When you move inwards, you're moving back away from the physical. That's the direction we come from. That's the direction we can move, but it's only mental. It's a weird thing. I'm still growing with it. Atonement with the Father. In this material, when you get here and it's time for help, that's God. It's the Father, higher self. In the material, in the religious material, in Greek material, gods. That is God right there, the atonement with the Father. This is the higher being that has the capacity to heal, to help, to manage, to manipulate, to wash away, to create the flood, to remove all of the painful memories. No, to look at all the painful memories and realize that they shouldn't be painful memories. They're experiences that I had as I'm emerging and that I need to let them go. That's what the atonement with the Father is. You are connecting up with this part because this is the part that you need to deal with the woman as the temptress or the issues that continue to emerge. You're going to be on the road of trials, and you're doing this until the hurtful emotion is changed and you're free from its bondage. I do want to offer up some thinking that I've had right now on this higher self and getting to that point, that in all reality, before we're born, there is that energy field. And when we're born, we emerge from that energy field, but we're a product of all of the, the nutrients and the things like that, the whole life process is beginning in the physical world, but emerging from that. And when we first are born, we are more connected mentally with that world than anything else. We don't have the awareness yet to the physical world. That's not a good place to be. We can't do anything. But as we grow and develop, before we get hurt, before we make judgments, there's a point where we are conscious and subconscious and there's nothing inside and we're happy and gleeful and everything is going good. Then life happens. And our experiences and the emotional state begin to interfere with that. The objective for us is when we go from our higher self, we're actually going through that mess and realizing we can get there and see that mess from the other side of it. And when we clear that out pretty soon, what happens is we cease to live through the bundle of experiences and begin to live through the higher self. I want to throw in another caveat, or I want to put a caveat in this one that I'll try to remember this time. The last one was that, okay, when you're born, you aren't empty. You have some things in there already. But here's the other deal at that age, that when you might not be a little kid that grew up all happy and giggly and having fun until you got hurt at the age of 12, 14, 18, whatever. Generally speaking, when we come from hurt places, we were getting hurt before we could consciously remember it. So just bear that in mind. When we're going through this, there might be more to it than what it sounds like. Sometimes we're trying to get to a point where we're not hurt, but we might not remember in our own lives. Okay. Let's do a quick review of the two sections then. We're getting ready to emerge back out into the world, but let's see what we've covered so far. And I'm just going to go through everything that we've done in plain language. Let's see the steps. Okay, first a reminder of Joseph Campbell's steps himself. In this first section for the departure, we have the departure, call to adventure, refusal of the call, supernatural aid, crossing the first threshold, and belly of the whale. Then once you've crossed that threshold and gone into the belly of the whale, we are in the initiation process, where we run into the road of trials, the meeting with the goddess, woman as a temptress, atonement with the Father, apotheosis, and the ultimate boon. That is Joseph Campbell's template up to that point. Okay, and if you're still here at this point, you know how we got here, so I'm not going to explain the process again. Just here is what we have. This is what it comes into, the departure area. So that starts off, we are ready for a change. Few are going to do this, and you only want the truth. We're trying to get away from our cyclical problems and our past life. We're ready to have a rebirth. It's a self-calling, your choice. It's going to be difficult to leave the past. You won't want to go. You need mental tools in order to navigate the text. And that's what I'm finding as I explore. We're going to have to turn inward, and you are in the mind. Once there, there's going to be difficulty. Long road. The meeting with the goddess, still nebulous. I'm going to leave that there. It's going to be hard to leave the past. It's still there. You need to connect with your higher self. Work on it until the hurt is transformed and I am free of its bondage. That is what the hero's journey template. That's the core. That's the core. I've got the rest of it to do. I'll do that on the next video. Usually what happens is I do something like this and then I start on the next one and I start thinking of, oh, I know what that is now. So I can do improvements along the way. It's dynamic. It's rediscovering something. There's something there. Help me, guys. Somebody, it's puzzle solving. It's a mental process. We can do it from home. Hope it was fun. Love one another. And I'll see you in the next video.